Hi, it's Mr. Hem here. So in this video, I'd like to hook into the mouse button release and the mouse motion events in Python. What we did in the previous video is we hooked to the button press, the mouse button press, and I just want to add a few more mouse interactions. So let's get started. So to add to in TK, to add to the to hook to into the event, we'll go into our main window, which is a TK window, and there's a method called bind, open bracket, and in the documentation to hook into the button release, the mouse button release, it's triangle brackets button release. I don't think it's past tense with a D, and then close bracket, close this triangle bracket here, and we need to bind it to some kind of function, just like we did here with the button press. So you notice the button press event is kind of bound to this particular. So when we press the button, it does this thing, all of that stuff. So we want to define another function that handles the mouse release. So really, by convention, a click is kind of a press release motion. So really, I shouldn't call this clicked. I should call this mouse, what's good, mouse pressed, and this one then should be called mouse released. Now I'll go past tense because it's activated when it's done it. So we'll go mouse release, I can't spell, released, and over here we'll change this to mouse pressed instead. And in a mouse release, look, there's only one thing I really want to register here. Now you could register different positions you're releasing. So in your game or in your particular software, you could click at a point and release at a point. So you can kind of click, drag, and release. And it's useful in a sense when you want to do maybe drag and drops. So we could modify this a little bit for click and release. Let's actually do that. That's probably a better idea there. All right, so we'll have two sets of X and Y's, one for a press and one for a release. You'll notice that these are yellow. That's because we should initialize these to some value. It's not good practice. So at the top here in kind of this global scope, we'll go mouse release X, mouse released Y, and we'll set these positions to something 0, 0, and these are going to be mouse released. So we can register where we released our, oh well, this is actually pressed, so we'll have mouse press. Now I'm not using any structures, I'm just putting it directly into separate variables and just remembering what I'm calling them. And you may not want that, you might not want that. You might want to track where the mouse is when the mouse starts, but that's fine. So this one's actually pressed. And mouse num, I can't remember what mouse nums were, but it looks like they're numbers. So we'll go 1 for now. Mouse num, capital N there. Okay, so we'll just register some initial values for these. And we should also register a whether another one where is pressed as false. So we can determine whether the mouse is pressed or not, regardless of where we clicked it, regardless of what we've clicked. All right, so it doesn't matter if it's, or maybe actually mouse left is pressed and mouse right is pressed. So we want to kind of grab all the information so that we're better informed when we're making our game or whatever we're making. All right, so we've got all our variables here. This is our X and Y for press, release, which one we pressed, whether, and to be honest, this we probably don't even need anymore. But anyway, we'll keep it there. And now we can just use whether we've, oh, this should be false, whether the mouse left is pressed true or false. All right, so now we'll go back into here and we'll pull the globe. We'll pull the global scope of mouse left is pressed. Right. And what I'll do is I'll knock that out for now. And now I'll do a check. Well, actually I need this check. If mouse 1 is pressed, that basically means it's the left, I think. That was the left. So mouse left is pressed equals true. Else if mouse num, and I can't remember, but I think it would have been, it may have been number 3. I might check that. I think it was number 3. I can't remember. I'll just check that one. It might be 2 or 3. Right is pressed equals to true, and we'll pick up mouse pressed. So it's when the pressed event. Mouse num, we need to check. We don't need to make it global though, because we've already registering where it's clicked. But what if we click a mouse button that is not, you know, right, left or right? So this abstraction is kind of useful. All right, so that's good. Now in the mouse release, we want to do the same thing. I want to grab all of that. And this time round, instead of press, we want to know where we release the button. So where we released it. So we can do something else at that location. And that's the same. This is now the released position where we're releasing. Now normally on a click, our press and release are in the same spot or close to the same spot. But in this particular game framework, I want to separate them. So press, just press, and then we'll set the presses to false. So we need to check if that works. What we can do is we can go back into our game loop and just check a few things. I'll grab the sporting ball. Okay, so in here, what I'll do is I go if mouse pressed is left is pressed. Don't even need to write equals true. Case sensitive. We want to create balls. at the mouse pressed locations. Not the release locations, but the pressed locations. Let's try that. Okay. So you notice it's at the press location. Do you see that? So I pressed it there. It doesn't matter if I where I move, that's where I pressed it. So that's good. That's working. Let's try the release. So when we press, when mouse is pressed, left is false. We'll do it on a release. We want to spawn on a release, not on a press. So we'll set that to false, because I'm not sure if it was number 3. Alright, time's nearly up, but we'll so you notice here on the release it is working there. Alright, now let's test the right. So we want to do a right is pressed false. Is pressed true. Okay, so now we want to do a right click. We want to spawn the balls on a right click. I was just hoping that it was number 3. So I'm doing a right click right now, and it is spawning on the right click. So that's good. Now let's do it so that we can spawn it on a release. So it won't spawn on a press, but it will spawn on a release. And it will spawn on the release location, wherever you released it. So let's try our released. It will register a click. It will only create a random ball on the released location. Okay, so on a released location. So when mouse is pressed, right mouse is pressed, it should do it on a release, wherever I release the mouse, and then it should spawn on the release. So I'll click it. It should go to 0, 0 actually, because my release is. Okay, so I released it here last, and then it goes there. So it is working. You can't quite tell, but it is working. It's not a great way to test it, but it is working. All right, no worries. I didn't get to the mouse motion because we're running a bit out of time. We've set up a number of things. We've got our press location, release location, and also whether it's like we're holding the mouse button, left mouse button down or the right mouse button down. If it's true, it's down. If it's false, it's up. All right. And I'll see you in the next video.